Hi, it's Joey Remini here from Seeking Balance International, and I'm really pleased to be sitting in my lounge room having a chat with Richy Bennett. So welcome, Richy.
Thanks, Joey. Hi, everybody.
So Richy's a psychologist, he's a colleague of mine and a friend of mine, and I love the way Richy works, heart and soul with his clients and also just with himself and his own approach to life. So Richy's just recently released a book called 100 Dawns, and it's full of poetry and images of waking up in the morning and going to our beautiful coastline and connecting with nature. And so I work with lots of people who have chronic illness, and this could be pain, anxiety, vertigo, tinnitus, sleeplessness. And a large part of our healing process is looking into the deeper parts of life and, what really drives us, what anchors us, what connects us to meaning and purpose. And I think sometimes we take our health for granted and what's available to us. And it can be until everything strips away from you and suddenly, driving a car's difficult or getting out of bed's difficult or your body's in so much pain. And these are times when we often do stop and think, all right, what's life really about? What am I here for? Some of those deeper questions. And I thought I'd have a chat with Richy about what got you on this path of doing something like waking up at dawn 100 mornings in a row. I can barely wake up one morning at dawn. So talk me through your connection to nature and this search that you're on. How did it start?
Well, in terms of the 100 Dawns practice, that actually began as a fundraising challenge.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, I felt a lot of the young people in particular that I was working with that were presenting with mental health challenges and other life challenges, there was quite a significant disconnect between Mother Nature and their innate beauty, their own true nature. And it was more in a material or technological world that they were trying to navigate and experience.
And what age were these people?
I work with people 6-7 years of age through to, late adulthood. So, but it was particularly the young people, kind of 8 to 10 to 25, 30-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set up this challenge where for 100 dawns in a row, I went to the beach a good hour, mainly around Bells Beach here on the surf coast, a good hour before first light because it's such a beautiful time while it's still in the dark. And I would meditate, and I'd meditate for a while, and then whatever sentiment arose from meditation, I'd pen that down. And that was usually around when the first light of dawn arose, which is around about 20 to 30 minutes before the sun will actually rise.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd have this little space of about, 15, 20 minutes where I'd pen down the sentiment. And being someone that's always written songs and poetry all my life, for some reason it always arose in verse. So that's kind of how the book ended up being 100 times as well. And I'd take a photo of the beautiful pre-dawn sky, or however that pre-dawn sky was, because sometimes it was just a complete grey, torrential rain, howling wind kind of morning.
I really want to talk about that.
Yeah, and then the other element of the practice was to embody that sentiment, whatever it might be, gratitude, appreciation, curiosity, whatever arose in that meditation during the surf. And I'd be physically in the water for 100 sunrises in a row. And of course, most mornings I would actually see the sun because there was enough clarity in the sky, but lots of mornings it wasn't there as well. But the intention of going from that beautiful, peaceful space of meditation and coming to a knowing or a sentiment or an intention, that's kind of like it can be quite tranquil and quite graceful to come into discoveries and understandings of self and intentions of what we'd like to do with our life. And it's when we get into the intensity of the day-to-day life or the experience that we're wanting to change and transform, that's when we can get challenged and go back to the old and that kind of thing. So going into the surf, which is a high intensity zone, it's high challenge often with the size of the waves. I did the practice from late February through to June. So I went from late summer all through autumn, which is a great swell season here, and then into winter where it's still great swell. So there was quite a lot of challenge and intensity in the lineup. And at the same time, on the good days, there's also a crowd. So there's this social dynamic that happens out in the surf that sometimes can be comfortable, but sometimes quite uncomfortable.
So can I just recap some of that? So what you're saying is you would take yourself into that peaceful, quiet, meditative space. It's just you and the beach, you and the ocean.
Yeah.
And you'd have that time to collect your thoughts and listen, I suppose, listen to nature, be with nature. And then you'd take that clarity and actually go into a more challenging situation where you had to say, okay, well, I've just been sitting down and meditating on gratitude and flow. How can I take that gratitude and flow with me as I'm paddling for a monster of a wave, or there's a
Yeah,
crowd of people to navigate?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, like my main speciality in psychology is in human performance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a fundamental in human performance is to train at the level of intensity or higher than you're actually going to encounter when you compete, so that you're kind of ready for anything, you know. Of
Yeah.
course, occasionally you'll have some unforeseen things arise, but basically you're ready for anything because you've done the training. So the meditation, if you like, was the training part. And I would always allow nature to guide that
Mm-hmm.
meditation. Yeah, sometimes it's very beautiful, and I do this a lot in my practice. I guide meditations for people and share a
Mm-hmm.
dialogue to, take them somewhere, or at least open them to some place within. But nature does that very beautifully and very gently as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even those mornings where it was torrential rain and 80, 90 kilometre hour winds, there was still nature taking you somewhere, guiding you somewhere, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and move with that was kind of part of coming to a deeper awareness or place within self.
And I think there's something really important and really beautiful. And coming back to what you were saying about the adolescents and the younger kids being disconnected and, on our phones all the time and sort of almost at the mercy of being liked or, getting comments. And there's something really important as humans and part of nature connecting in with our cycles. And like, so I'm always following the moons, and every day I jot down where the moon's at in the cycle. And I find it really grounding. It helps me understand where I am each month and helps me just not necessarily document, but in a way just, regather where I am each day. And as you went through this 100 dawns of being in nature, did you ever find yourself kind of getting annoyed at nature and going, why are you cold today? Why are you windy today? Why is that sky doing this today? And why can't I see a beautiful pink or orange sunset? Like, I'm just thinking about the relationship often my clients will have with their body is they get really angry. They're like, why aren't you good today? Why aren't you treating me the way I want you to treat me today? And I'm like, well, nature's variable. And so what did you notice through the varying weather patterns and sunrises?
Yeah. Well, for me, that was part of the beauty of the practice,
Mm-hmm.
because humans don't control nature.
No.
Mother Nature, and whether it's sunny or rainy or windy or still or no waves or big waves, we don't have any control over that at all.
Yeah.
So when you let go of the attachment to control, then you've now got a huge amount of mental, spiritual energy available to adapt, to navigate, to transform, and which is the nature of nature, if you like. It's always changing,
Yeah.
transforming.
And I also just want to say it's like that beautiful two words. It's just you show up. Like all you do is you show up, you turn up, and you have space for whatever
Yeah,
is
even
there.
even the commitment to the routine was very much in service of this ecosystem, so to speak. Because, for example, my sleep actually improved, and
Yeah.
my usual needs for the level quantity of food that I usually have actually decreased, because the efficiency of what's going on in my inner world is improving. Even though I was still surfing, doing yoga, doing walks, bike rides, I had my usual day
Mm-hmm.
after the meditation practice, but it felt like I came to a place of greater efficiency of my energy and nutrient use. But the intention really about doing the practice in nature was to illuminate the value of connecting with nature, as well as the value of intentional self-study for
Yeah.
our mental health and well-being.
Yeah.
Because that was another element of the disconnect that I've seen with young people, but not just young people, across the lifespan with the people that I work with. And this can be elite performers as much as people from general community,
Absolutely. We're all human.
where there can be a tendency to look outside for the answer, for the solution, for the cure kind
Yeah.
of thing.
There'll be a lot of people listening to this who relate to that. They will have
Yeah,
consulted with a lot of professionals and
yeah,
they've been looking.
yeah. And for me, medicine is magic. It's wonderful. It's incredible, and science is magic and wonderful and incredible. But uh, for me, the innate wisdom that a human has is synonymous with the innate wisdom of Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
And when you cultivate a practice, in this time it was meditation, and there's other ways you can
Yeah.
connect with your innate wisdom, you start to have a sense of more command and autonomy, and it's more a choice of what you'll bring in to augment your healing,
Yeah.
rather than a dependence on an external to do your healing.
Yeah.
Because, like for example, the moment I cut my finger, immediately my body's trying to heal it.
Yeah.
So, the blood will thicken, white cells will come in to help that there's, if there's infection, that kind of thing. I haven't even thought about it. I might even not even got the Band-Aid yet.
Yeah.
I might have stopped the bleeding, but I haven't got the Band-Aid on it yet.
The body's onto it.
Yeah, exactly. So it will innately start the healing. And then I have something like a Band-Aid or a bandage, to just apply pressure to assist that process. But it's not the Band-Aid that heals me. The healing comes from within. And that happens on all levels. That happens mentally, emotionally, relationally, so in our relationships and things like that. If I want to improve my relationship, whether it's with another person or with myself, my body, or the decisions I've made in life that I, when reflection, I didn't, they're not the ones that I would have made if I had a little bit more knowledge or a little bit more attunement to myself.
And I think
then, that's you can come to those understandings within, and then it's what you choose to see around you to augment that rather than dependence on what's around you.
My experience of this has been that when I've listened to my own answer, so there's been many times in my life when I've gone to specialists, experts, doctors, teachers, regarded professionals, and I've sought external information, and that's been an important part of my gathering and collecting data that I can use in my ecosystem. And then there's moments when I stop and I could be sitting under a tree or lying in a hammock or staring at the clouds or swimming in the ocean, and I'll have this moment of clarity, and it is so easy and so simple and so profound that sometimes I can even overlook it, think, oh no, it's too simple. And I think part of this practice of self-study and reconnecting is actually allowing the simplicity of healing and allowing the simplicity of moving with nature in that flow, that sometimes it doesn't need to be complicated. And can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, something that I found really as a powerful remembering, really, learning's kind of funny. I think a lot of our learning is remembering what we know. And again, that's accessing, wisdom, but it was just how connecting, being in nature every morning, regardless of the weather. So I didn't even check the weather. I
can relate to that.
Whatever nature presented, I'd made a commitment to be in that space.
Yeah.
And so whether it was, warm, sunny, when the sun rose earlier, or nice and still, or whether, there were discomforts. So the way I looked at it was there was comforts and discomforts. That's just an observation. That's not a judgment or a good or bad or positive, negative. There's comforts and discomforts. And yeah, it's a little more comfortable when it's warm and it's still and that kind of thing. Then it's uncomfortable when it's absolutely pouring rain and you're sitting there meditating, or it's uncomfortable in a sense, or can be when it's 80, 90-kilometre-hour winds. You're literally feeling your body actually get moved along with the sand at different points when the gusts come.
And it's cold.
Yeah. It was incredibly cold some mornings, 3-4 degrees Celsius, and then of course you've got the wind chill. But so the comforts and discomforts of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
That's synonymous with the comforts and discomforts of our own ecosystem inside. So, for example, if I didn't like the rain and I judged the rain and the rain wasn't any good and I did that, that's kind of like judging nature. And so I'll either seek to avoid it or I won't appreciate the true value of the rain, and it will continue to be a discomfort for me. Whereas if I accept its presence and I might adapt, like, for example, particularly when it got a little colder, I was actually on the beach meditating in my outerwear, my snow gear.
Yeah.
Because, I want to have a practice that's enabling me to be attuned. And so if I'm aware that the weather will have a really significant impact on that ability, then now I can, again, you choose something external to augment what you're trying to achieve internally.
It's also just being prepared. And it's also backing yourself, and it's finding ways to keep showing up, because there's always going to be challenges, and sometimes we're going to have all these expectations of how our day is going to line up or how things are going to happen. And this doesn't matter if you're somebody recovering tinnitus or dizziness or chronic pain, or even if you're an Olympic athlete. You're going to have a plan and a strategy and a mindset that's gearing you up for something. And the question is, can we feel prepared enough to face what's coming, and then also have some resilience to work with some things that we don't predict? Sometimes life will make it difficult and we have to think on our feet, and we have to think, am I going to fight with this, with the rain and the wind, Or am I going to sit back and think, wow, this is kind of miraculous? It's awe-inspiring and breathtaking. And thank goodness I've got my beanie and I've got my jacket and I can sit through it and appreciate it, like Richy was saying.
Yeah, well, thank goodness that I was aware and I made good decisions.
Yeah.
Because, my understanding of Mother Nature and human nature is that we're purpose built to survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the rain, even though there might be a perception of discomfort and even judgment about it, it has a divine service for the planet, so to
It
speak.
sure does.
So even though we have discomforts of mind and body, whether it's an emotional pain, a physical pain, or other kind of pain, there's a potential for service in that, meaning there can be a learning, a message, more involution, more actual growth as a person. And by growth, I mean more understanding of our qualities and potentials and how we can transform, transcend the discomforts and restore, the comfort again. So, for example, through my lifetime, rain is always going to happen, particularly a lot in different seasons, winter, etc. So, sometimes physical symptoms or emotional experiences are just going to be part of my daily existence. But my response to that doesn't necessarily have to be reactive or mental in a way. And a lot of what you experience when you're intentionally connected with Mother Nature is that you tend to bypass the transient nature of mind, which is just attaching to all sorts of stuff, symptoms, discomfort, the systems, the whole judgment or the whole story.
Yeah, I was going to say the rights and wrongs, the goods and bads.
System.
Yeah.
But when you come into the essence of your nature, your heart, the divine qualities of the heart and the soul, what that actually feels like, what that means, then you're coming from the inside out again. And the mind is now a tool that you're utilizing to restore comfort in the discomfort, or in a performance scenario, fulfill your potential in a certain area, in a social setting, to be of service to another person that may be in need, or to actually allow and receive service when you've made the decision that, yes, I would like to be assisted in this moment or this challenge that I'm moving through.
Yeah. And also, forgiving ourselves and giving ourselves space to have the wild, stormy weather, because as a human being, we are a piece of nature and we are a piece of this great, divine, bigger life force. It's so much bigger than anyone can ever explain. And within us, we're not robots, we're not mechanic. Like, we have all these complex interactions. And I mean, I'm awe-filled every single day of my life with what I observe in my body and in the world around me. I just think it's amazing. And there's so much going on in my biology that I simply can't academically understand. It's in me, it's innately happening. There's wisdom and science going on, but it doesn't mean my mind can necessarily understand that. And I think when we connect back with nature and we start to really look at trees change and moon cycles and sun cycles and animal patterns and even human interactions and social patterns, I think it humbles us to see, like, wow, there's so much complexity. And even just staring at a simple flower or a seashell or watching the tides, it's humbling to be in that space of having your breath taken away. And I think that all comes back to the fundamentals of curiosity and being open and really getting honest with ourselves about when we're in a space of judgment and should be this, or it's good or bad, or I don't want this, I'm going to push it away or run away, versus, oh, that's interesting, I'm going to stay with this and I'm going to watch. That's interesting, that feels different, okay. And so, like, we're kind of opening up and practicing that curiosity. And do you want to even, I'm sure there's loads of curiosity that came to you in your 100 Dawns, but I'm curious, do you want to pick a random poem and maybe share one?
Well, there's one that's come to mind from a particularly cold and in terms of the Mother Nature and the weather presented was a fair bit of discomfort. And the sentiment that was arising, I had this experience where I could really feel the movement of my heart beating, but not just the movement, there was also the warmth. It was almost, it was like, because obviously we're warm-blooded creatures, and so that movement of my circulatory system was keeping, and potentially it was beyond the physical. It was, so a sentiment arose. It was something like, the ocean may be cold, the onshore cutting through. Though patiently with love, my heart stays warm for you. And so when I went into the ocean that day, it was quite a cold ocean, but I chose not to wear a wetsuit.
Oh.
So I got out of my outerwear, and because it was a little towards the end of autumn, so it was really quite a lot of more extreme.
And did you surprise yourself at how you could maintain your body temperature?
Yeah, it was really beautiful. It was just allowing the continuance of the heart staying warm for you. For me, there was a deeper energy there of self-love. And I think that's a really beautiful quality and potential and actual natural state of a human is to be in a state of self-love. And to know that the qualities and gifts we have, mind is a quality gift, body is a quality of gift. And when we cultivate those qualities and gifts, then they serve us so much better. So when we have experiences where we might have a symptom or a disease or a disability of some sort that we're trying to navigate, move through, heal, if we're losing sight or we're not tapping into some of the other energies and qualities like the heart, the warmth of the heart, and the beauty of our inner being, then potentially that's limiting our healing.
We're not accessing it.
So it was really beautiful to, there was so much discomfort, objectively discomfort from nature that morning, and the resonance and the warmth of my heart was just such a balance. So I actually still felt at one with nature. So it wasn't like I just got into this little warm state and I could just block it out. It's kind of like I'm totally at present and at one
and
with
I'm okay.
what I'm presented with, and I'm okay. In fact, I feel really good here. This is beautiful.
I really want to invite everybody listening, if you feel called, to really think about, what does self-love mean to you? In what ways are you treating yourself with love? In what ways are you sometimes finding a discomfort or something that is challenging for you? And that could be a symptom, or it could be a relationship, or it could be any part of your life, career or athleticism. Any challenge, I invite you to say, how can I love this more? How can I love myself more? How can I offer a loving kindness and an unconditional life force that says, wow, this is actually really interesting and this is bigger than me, because I am not my symptom and I am not my sport, An Olympian is not their gold medal. So I really want to invite you to explore self-love. And there's a poem here that I really like. Can I read one?
Yeah, sure, Joe.
So Gentleness is the name of the poem, by Richy Bennett. And it says, the air is still, the clouds move slowly, the waves rumble peacefully. I embody the gentleness. I embrace the sunrise. I am healing. Thanks, Richy.
Thank you, Joe.
So great to chat with you. And I hope everyone here has a little something to take home and explore their nature within, and potentially the nature around them. And that doesn't mean you have to get up 100 times in a row at an hour before dawn. You could even just take your shoes off and walk on the grass, connect with the ground. Yeah. So it's a bye for now. And
thank you, everybody.
See you.
Bye-bye.